Our hunter to hubris. It's unfortunate. I'm gonna leave him as a ghost, a testament to the mistake. I'm gonna go Shaman next, mixing up the races now. See how that goes. I'm gonna be muted watching the BlizzCon panel, so that'll be playing in the background while playing this. Hope you guys don't mind. Alright.
To us. Most recently, we teased an update to our campfire screen, and savvy fans, of course, understood that we meant more than just the character lighting and fire visual effects. That's right. Today, we're happy to announce a brave new soul joining the barbarian, the sorcerer, and the druid on this dangerous journey back to Sanctuary. A class is one of the most exciting things you can announce in a Diablo game. This one is especially exciting to me, as it's a re-envisioning of one of the first classes to ever appear in the series. Let's have a look.
Well met. We shall meet again.
But you have to be patient. Now, pray with me. May Akarat guide and protect me.
May Akarat guide and protect me.
May he shepherd my soul.
May he shepherd my soul.
And grant it mercy.
And grant it mercy.
What are you doing here? This is not the time.
But this is confession. And I have sinned. I was a thief who stole from those more fortunate. I strayed from your light and found my trade in the shadows. They call it murder. I say, job well done. I am a thief, a heretic, a murderer, Father. Will Akarat save me?
You mock our light. But those monsters were a scourge upon my flock. And you... oh, you were the answer to their prayers.
Then we are settled, and you owe me.
The name you seek is... Thank the heavens for you.
Heavens? I assure you, Father, the heavens didn't send me.
sound of that ear getting pierced by the hook is so brutal. I feel like it's gonna haunt me for a long time. I've been a huge fan of the Rogue ever since the original Diablo. Even seeing them come back as NPCs and mercenaries in Diablo 2's Rogue Encampment served as a great bridge between the games. With the setting of Diablo 4 being a larger world than we've ever played in before, we're excited to show you not just what the successors to the original rogues in the series have been up to since the fall of their order, but also what some of the other rogues in the world of Sanctuary might look like. The mantra for Diablo 4 has been customization first, and the Rogue takes this to a whole new level. From the beginning, the Rogue has been an incredibly flexible class, able to adapt to any situation. Our goal is to let you create the kind of rogue that you want to play. Whether it's an unrivaled archer modeled after the original Sisterhood, or a cloak and dagger rogue from the darkest alleys of Chaldeum, in Diablo 4, you will have the freedom to create the rogue that you imagine by customizing the looks, the background, and the playstyle of your character. Please stick around for our segment later today, where I'll be joined by other members.
It's too far away.
What brings you here wins the at your back. We shall meet again.
Members of the Diablo 4 team to share a closer look at the Rogue class, as well as some of the open world gameplay that we're bringing to the game. Spoilers, those severed ears are not just for show. But Diablo 4 is not the only Diablo game we're talking about today. If you're looking for an authentic Diablo experience on mobile, we've got you covered. Diablo Immortal has everything you'd expect from a AAA action RPG. From the visceral combat and epic loot to an all-new story, bridging the gap between the events of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. Later today, you can join the Immortal team, where they'll talk about some of the things they've learned from their recent alpha test and what's next for the game. But that's still not all. We have one last bit of very exciting Diablo news to cover. When you hear us talk about the classes, the items, or the stories of the early Diablo games, you may have picked up on the absolute reverent tone we reserve for that golden era of Diablo. Maybe you share that love of the classics, and just hearing us talk about them makes you want to take on Mephisto or Baal one more time. Or maybe even for the first time. After all, some of our favorite moments happened a long time ago, and not just in Sanctuary years. If so, we have a special surprise for you today. Let's check it out.
How was it not yours, the wanderer?
Now you know what I seek, Marius.
Are these the demons from... Don't do it! It seems not there. I'm not acceptable of that unto me. Arise, Diablo, Lord of Terror. Though this be our darkest hour, it may yet be your greatest moment.
May the eternal sun shine upon you. What brings you here? Ancestors watch over you. May the eternal sun shine upon thee.
I've been expecting you. May the eternal sun shine upon thee.
Peace, friend. May the eternal sun shine upon thee.
Not enough mana. My mana is low. It's too far away. I'm out of range.
After more than 20 years, the Dark Wanderer has returned. And once again, he travels east. Always east. Diablo 2 is a landmark game for Blizzard. Diablo 2 Resurrected is a full HD remaster
of both the original game and the expansion, Lord of Destruction. It takes the 2D sprite-based classic that we love and brings it into the present in 3D, utilizing up-to-date graphical rendering and lighting technologies. It also includes modernizing all 27 minutes of cinematics, recreated shot for shot with the explicit intention of preserving both the look and the pacing of the original movies. Blizzard has a long history of games that we're proud of. And when we think about Diablo 2, we think about it as a definitive pillar in our foundation. Now, it's funny to think that some of you weren't even born when D2 was released, which makes it all the more important that we deliver an authentic experience wherever you play. We want everyone to relive their memories or experience the game for the very first time on their platform of choice. And so we're excited to bring Diablo 2 Resurrected to PC and console, along with cross-progression. And for those of you who are in love with the original and you just wish it worked more seamlessly on modern computers, you can bring back all of that nostalgia exactly as you remember and enjoy the game in its original 2D form, much like we did with StarCraft Remastered. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about. Later today, Diablo speedrunner Mr. Llama will host a roundtable with members of the development team on the dedicated Diablo channel. If you are a Diablo 2 fan, I encourage you to take a look. So, from Diablo 2 Resurrected, to Burning Crusade Classic, to the Blizzard Arcade Collection, it's a whole lot of looking back. And while we have teams dedicated to bringing these timeless experiences into your hands, it's actually a very small percentage of our developers working on these projects. Far more people are working on the future of Blizzard. And in addition to what we'll be talking about during the show, we can't wait to tell you even more about our plans over the course of this year and beyond. If you had asked us 30 years ago what gaming would look like today, none of us could have predicted the current Blizzard lineup of games. The advances in technology are one thing, but it's really what those advances have enabled that's even more incredible. If you think about the people who play games and the communities that have grown up around them, the way people can connect instantly, no matter where they are in the world, the way people are increasingly able to express their identity and celebrate who they are through their favorite games, communities, and platforms. The explosion of things like streaming, cosplay, and esports. It would have been hard to imagine any of that 30 years ago. And at Blizzard, that is what excites us about the next 30 years. There is so much that we're working on. Some of it you already know about. The rest, we look forward to talking to you about it when the time is right. Just like the real world, the worlds of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, and Hearthstone are diverse, expansive, and full of potential. We are not only iterating on the experiences that you've come to expect from us, we're also exploring different ways to express our worlds and welcome more players from more places into them. And we aspire to continue to lead on priorities like accessibility and toxicity control, and to continue supporting causes that have a positive impact on the real world. We want to continue to bring those same feelings of joy and achievement that we all felt when we first defeated the Lich King, or beat Diablo on hardcore mode. Because when we geek out on those experiences with others, we can't help but see the similarities between us and feel what's possible when we play together. Of course, there are new Blizzard worlds that we haven't visited quite yet. And when we do finally unveil those games and experiences, Our hope is that you will see in them what we do. That no matter who you are or where you're from, they are spaces where you can create new stories, forge new friendships, and make memories worthy of lasting a lifetime. And through it all, our mission statement of being dedicated to creating the most epic entertainment experiences ever, along with our core values, led by gameplay first, will continue to guide our way. So on behalf of everyone at Blizzard, thank you for being on this journey. For me personally, it is the honor of my professional life to serve you, and the honor of all of us at Blizzard to be the caretakers of the worlds that you play in. We are so excited for what's to come this year, next year, and the next 30 years. Now, what's coming next for the show? Well, it depends on where you watch. For those of you looking for an update on Overwatch, check out the behind-the-scenes look into the development of Overwatch 2 over on their dedicated channel right after the conclusion of opening ceremonies. There, you'll hear about Overwatch 2, new content, new features, including new maps, hero missions, talent trees, and more of what we think will make Overwatch 2 a unique gameplay experience. For World of Warcraft, Diablo, and Hearthstone, you'll get a closer look on their respective channels. And on the dedicated strategy channel, some StarCraft legends will be going head-to-head in epic competition. Once again, welcome to BlizzCon Live. Be good to one another. Welcome home. Before we kick things off, here's a little something from a previous BlizzCon headliner.
Hey, thanks for having us. We're Metallica. Thanks for having us at BlizzCon 2014. We would love to be there this year, but obviously can't be.
For 15 years, I started on World of the Alliance having paladins for Blessing of Salvation. Like, people would be pulling aggro off me and I'd be yelling at them like, wait for 3 Sunders, and the Alliance is just like, no, it's no problem, just go.
Yep. So hey, I mean, we were upset raiding like Razor Gore without Earthbind. I mean, really even the playing field for both PvE and PvP, which was kind of cool. But there were a ton of new features and just abilities with this too. As we got to level 70 and got to experience new content. New Shaman.
Played both. Been a WoW player since beta. Welcome everyone to our deep dive panel for WoW Classic. I'd like to start with some introductions with these fine gentlemen with me and myself. I'm Holly Longdale. I'm the principal producer for WoW Classic. A little bit about my background. I spent 13 years working on EverQuest. I started as a game designer and eventually became the head of the studio for the EverQuest franchise. That said, I've always been a WoW player since beta. So this is obviously a dream come true for me, and I'm thrilled to be here with you.
I'm Patrick Dawson. I'm the production director for World of Warcraft. I've been at Blizzard for 15 years now, and have been on WoW for most of that time. Avid WoW player myself, and really excited to open up that dark portal again as we all step through it.
And my name's Brian Birmingham, and I'm the lead software engineer on WoW Classic. I've also been at Blizzard for 15 years. I started on World of Warcraft. I spent about 3 years on Hearthstone as well, and then came back to the World of Warcraft team to work on WoW Classic. And it has been a great joy to me to work on this team.
There's a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
So earlier we announced, yay, Burning Crusade Classic is coming. But there's a lot more to it. Let's take a look at the features, because wow. I mean, wow, right? Wow. I was so excited by playing Draenei and Blood Elves. I played both, and I will say my heart's with Alliance. Buy it. And I also took up jewel crafting on my Jernai Shaman. I wanted to corner the market. Just the whole notion of having items with sockets and just exploring that whole system. I'm also a bit of a systems nerd. So I completely lost my time for weeks in there.
The Burning Crusade, I remember being there back then. I mean, it was our first expansion ever. So all the new features was like this really cool moment of like, what's coming next, what's going to happen. And one of the things that you know, was pretty impactful to the game was Horde having Paladins and Alliance having Shaman. I mean, as an avid PvPer myself, I remember going back and trying to fight Shaman. I was Alliance back then. And just not understanding that class at all, because my team didn't have it. So like I try to poly them and then be like grounding totem. I didn't know what that was. And it's just like, why are Shaman immune to everything? I don't understand.
That's not what you said.
Yeah, no, but no, I did.
No, you said they're cheating.
I understood polymorph druids, but Shaman, why? Like now I started to understand Shaman a little bit better. We got some of their benefits. You know, I actually like got to see totems being placed down on my side for once, and got to see the frustration of dealing with Bubble Hearth on the other.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing raids, we were always jealous of the Alliance having Paladins for Blessing of Salvation. Like people would be pulling aggro off me, and I'd be yelling at them like, "Wait for 3 Sunders!" And the Alliance is just like, "No, it's no problem. Just just go, just go."
Yep. So hey, I mean, you know, we were upset raiding like Razor Gore without Earthbind. I mean, really even the playing field for both PvE and PvP, which was kind of cool. But there were a ton of new features and just abilities with this too. You know, as we got to level 70 and got to experience new content and new things. I remember one of my first experiences with understanding what it meant for designed by Blizzard, right?
Oh,
Because I was an engineer, right? I wasn't a designer. I was working on like the live ops team at the time, and you know, I was playing my class, avid player of Mage, and I sent this long email to Tom Chilton saying like, hey, you know, here's what Mage needs.
Dawson Manifesto.
So it was a well thought out forum post. And what was in it was things like bring back invisibility, let's get a threat dump in the class. And I didn't even necessarily tie those two together, but he was like, that's a pretty good idea, let's get Mage's invisibility. And just knowing that skill was coming along with some other new stuff for Mages like the Molten Armor, the Ice Lances, was just really cool to see all this new stuff in Burning Crusade.
On the other side of that, I was really excited about Spell Reflect because I was really frustrated getting polymorphed and being able to like reflect that back on the Mage.
As a Mage, I was not excited for you to get
I bet you weren't. And there were even some PvE encounters that had abilities that you could reflect back. So I remember that was really fun to kind of find ways to time that and use it as a defensive ability as well.
I was a hunter.
Mm-hmm. I'm a hunter now,
a hunter.
actually. Yeah, I've switched.
But I remember just chasing Beastmaster and just DPS.
Yep.
That was it. That was the chase, yeah.
Talking about that too makes me think of like the arenas and the arena system. That was a whole new world for us, you know, with Battlegrounds and the way they worked before. Like the way the matchmaking happened, usually I was pretty competitive in PvP, so I would either get in there and stomp the enemy team who was just there to be casual, or, you know, even though like we were a good team, we weren't like the best of the best. So when we ended up going against one of those teams, it was just like, well, geez, we're just getting stomped now. This is tough. Arenas gave everyone an opportunity to play against equal-minded opponents, right? Mm-hmm. So if you were a little bit more casual, you get the opportunity to play against people who weren't maybe so competitive. Or if you were like cutting edge, go for it. Like try to be the best of the best. And what was great about that is it really just, it spawned an esport. Like that wasn't, we didn't design it for that. We just wanted people to have fun. But when we noticed like, hey, everybody's playing this, everybody's like competing in this, people are watching it, we had to embrace that. We started featuring it at BlizzCons, and we've been doing it every year since.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I think one of my favorite things to recollect was the exciting zones that you would travel through. One of my favorite memories was actually in the first zone, Hellfire Peninsula, and it was adventuring around in Hellfire Peninsula, going around and doing all those quests, and always living in fear of the Fell Reaper. Because you'd be out there collecting parts from like a broken Zeppelin, and you'd be fighting off your Hellbores, and then all of a sudden you'd see the screen start to shake, and like these thump, 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 and then and you're like, oh my god, I gotta run, he's right on top of me.
Sound still haunts my dreams.
Oh, I know, yeah, it's terrifying.
Even in life, it's just feign death.
Just get out of here. And then the payoff when you later go to Netherstorm and they give you the quest. They're like, could you get me a part from inside the Fell Reaver? You're going to have to kill him. And you're like, that guy? Like that guy that used to terrorize me? They're like, yeah, I think you could take him now. And that was such an exciting payoff to be able to like bring that full circle and go back and see him again.
For me, I snuck into beta. I got really lucky because I could see the construction sign for some of the zones, and of course I ignored it and went and explored. So I remember running through Blade's Edge and just seeing dragon carcasses and skeletons impaled in the environment, and then moving on to Netherstorm. I just was blown away, even from Zangermarsh all the way through. Everything felt like its own world, and just to be able to go through that and just the delight of it and the epicness of it, and then you come up to Area 52. That's what I love about WoW, is you can have epic storylines and still find lightness in it. So I just loved it. I love it. I'm an explorer, so.
You know, for me, I remember Burning Crusade really opened up a new gameplay type for me. I became a collector in Burning Crusade, right? And it kind of started with the Outdoor and Scryer rep. Because I got my outer rep all the way up, and then I was thinking about switching to Scryer, and people were like, "You're insane! Don't do that." And I was like, "I bet I can," just to prove people wrong. And I did, and it was cool. It was really fun. But then I started doing other things. Like there were all these new like mounts and pets, and I went back and even got some of the older reps like Thorium Brotherhood and Winterspring. But then like things like Netherwing Ledge came out. The world just opened up for me in Burning Crusade to really start my collection.
Of course, we also had flying mounts, which I loved, and then decided to play with some friends on a PvP server, and was running around Hellfire, and Death from Above, which is likely just Pat.
Probably.
Yeah.
Were you flying around harassing people, Pat?
I was getting a lot of honorable kills back in the day.
So that's just a quick look at some of our memories for Burning Crusade, and that was 13 years ago. So that code has been hanging around for 13 years. And we're not just doing a save as Burning Crusade Classic.
Oh no, it's a lot harder than that.
Yeah. So let's get into some of those details.
So one of the challenges has been that we don't actually want to ship on the old code. And the reason for that is because it's got a lot of bugs and difficulties with the architecture that we don't want to have to deal with. But we do want that old data. We talked about this when we did the original launch of Classic, was how the data is really the thing that describes how the game is supposed to be played and what things are supposed to happen in it. And so we want to bring that old data and we want to run it on the modern code, the same as we did for Classic. And there's like 750,000 rows of data that we have to go through and convert from their old formats to their new formats. And fortunately, we have really talented engineers, and we run automated scripts that go through this. But even after we run these scripts, we have to compare them with how it used to behave and make sure that we've actually done the conversion correctly. And then there's even some things that are making it more difficult this time, like the fact that we've made a couple of minor changes or bug fixes in the Classic data, and we want to make sure that we keep those as we're going into Burning Crusade. So we have to merge those changes with the changes that happened with the Burning Crusade originally, and make sure that we have a coherent set of changes that make sense to bring us from Classic into the Burning Crusade.
There's an enormous amount of time spent looking at, okay, this is how it came out now. We have a reference client that is the original.
That's right. We do use the old code for that. Yeah. So like we still have it. We just don't want to ship on that anymore. But we have like the old code with the old data, knows exactly how it's supposed to behave. So those things work together, and we can bring that up internally and take a look at it and say like, okay, this is how it was back then. This is exactly what it used to look like. And we do sometimes find things that are bugs we still want to fix, but a lot of times it will tell us like, oh, this thing is not a bug. This is actually the intended behavior, or this is something we don't really remember right. There's a tendency to want to chase your own memory, and like, I remember it being like this, and it's like, no, it's not always exactly the way you remember it. Everybody has that kind of human failing, even us, and so a lot of times we'll have an argument about, I remember it this way. Well, I remember it this way. Let's go and check. We can look.
Well, another reason to ship on the new code is really just the years of stability improvements, and the fact that the world didn't look the same back in 2007 as it does today. Like, that's true. There wasn't cloud architecture at that point. I remember I had the privilege of being on the live ops team where I got to see what all the servers looked like and how it was all architected. And to pull back the curtain on this a bit, the way it was is everything was its own like server server, right? Like they didn't really talk to each other very well. So each realm had 11 blades on it. And these blades were just bare metal blades, and like one blade was for Azeroth, one blade was for Kalimdor, one was for Outland, and then we had some for instances. And you know, back then what would happen without Cloud is you would try to request resources, and maybe a lot of people were running dungeons. And so it would give you back things like transfer aborted, instance not found. Oh boy, like we don't want to go back to those days. So now we can take advantage of things like the cloud and not have those resource issues. So shipping on this new code is a big improvement in stability.
Yeah, and so we're weaving all these threads together. We did finally get a build for Burning Crusade Classic. Super excited. When the team gets together, we're preparing for a playtest, and we go to create our characters. And we see this blood elf who, you know, he remembers the sun well. He forgot his pants.
Yeah.
So everything didn't work the first time?
What? I know.
Yeah, I did mention, like, we had to go through and check for problems in those conversion scripts. And so, yeah, sure enough, what's going on here is that this guy thinks he's dressed, but he isn't. And you can see why he thinks he's dressed if you look down.
Does that happen to you a lot?
Only in my high school dreams.
You can see, if you look at his calves, you can see that he's got they're flared out because he thinks he's wearing boots. And the way this system works is we first set the geometry up for all the items that you're supposed to be wearing, and then we layer on various images that we call textures, and we'd use those to build up a single composite texture that's then wrapped around the geometry. But of course, in this case, when we were layering them on, none of the textures were assigned, so it just started with his naked body, and then was going to go layer on textures and didn't find any. So it thinks he's dressed, and so it's removed the underwear because it thinks it's put clothes on top. But there aren't anything there. They're all just completely transparent. So it's almost like the Emperor's new clothes. He's wearing invisible clothes, only in this case, that's really what's happening.
That's crazy. And then, of course, I wanted to try Draenei because that's where my heart lies. I'm an Alliance girl. And this Draenei looks to be heads above the rest.
That's not the Exodar.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
It's Dunmorrow, right?
It is, and that's exactly the problem. It looks like the Draenei's too tall, but the real problem is that we're in the wrong place. And so, yeah, when you go to the Dunmorrow character select screen, of course, the camera is positioned for much shorter races like gnomes and dwarves, and so it's about knee-high on a Draenei.
And then water. Really, Brian? We have water in Hellfire?
Yeah, so
Go for a swim.
it turns out that Outland has a funny, unique feature that it doesn't have any oceans because the water just all falls off the edges and goes out into space or something like that. I'm not sure how that works in the game universe, but
magic.
But yeah, there's no ocean there. But we had accidentally flagged it to generate ocean, so we ended up flooding the entire world with an ocean until we found that and turned it back off.
So through all of these processes, yes, we're obviously we're fixing what is broken. But also we thought it was a good time to start enacting what we call #some changes to gameplay and how things should work.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like Classic, our guiding principle was no changes. The goal was to provide as true-to-life, authentic experience of Classic that we possibly could for the community. And we accomplished that. What was interesting to me is to see this vibrant community that embraced it and then said, hey, but we're not exactly the same as we were 15 years ago, right? And they're right. Like, the times have changed. The world has changed. And so some of those things that maybe were out there that were not great and were warts back in the day is not something that we would want to ship again. Like something that feels a little buggy or wrong or incorrect. So the idea behind this is let's provide what the Burning Crusade experience was without those warts.
This really, I think, illustrates the difference is spell batching. We actually had a lot of requests originally for spell batching in that kind of no changes charge, where they said, hey, I remember when I used to be able to have two mages polymorph one another and they would both end up polymorphed. And that's cute and fun and I kind of like that. And so we said, okay, well, we can put that back in. But the system that causes that is, of course, that the spells are batched up and processed in these giant batches. But over the last 2 years, people realized that what that comes with is about a half a second of kind of built-in latency, where you push a button and it doesn't actually take effect for that half a second while it's waiting to queue up the other ones to go with it. And people were starting to find that frustrating. I talked to a lot of people who said they were excited about it when it first came out with Classic, but after they've been playing with it for 2 years, they're really ready to see it go, and we're ready to take it out too. So we're going to remove spell batching with Burning Crusade.
That's definitely great, because I remember like every 2 weeks I get a bug report, Vanish is broken again. And it was because of stuff like this, right? Like if you vanish at the same time a fireball's hitting you, it's going to pop you out, right?
Exactly.
Like, and so we were trying to do all these tacky solutions to it, but the real answer is just don't spell batch.
Yeah.
But we didn't have the ability to do that then, so glad we're doing it now.
Yeah.
You know, another one that I can think of is just how the raiding community has matured, right? Like things were very different back in 2004, 2005 timelines compared to today. So, you know, the raiding community knows exactly what's going on, and they want a challenge. They want more of a challenge. So, you know, rather than always giving them like the last version of the boss, the final form of the boss, which maybe has been hit with a few nerfs, let's not do that anymore. Let's give them a more challenging version of the boss. Like, I'll give you an example of like Muru. Right, where the initial version of that boss had a lot of spell pushback, and so like that made it really tough to bring casting classes to that fight. We did fix that pretty quickly and change the fight to allow for that. Now that's a change we probably would incorporate in this, right? Like we don't want people to feel excluded or not part of being able to do a fight like that. But then probably a month or so after that, we nerfed Muru's health. That doesn't need to happen. Let's just keep it in the hard form. We can evaluate any changes we need to make after that, but yeah, it won't just be like, hey, final form, we're not even going to look at it. Let's call it a day. So.
Yeah. So how did your mage handle the pushback?
I just
it feels personal, yeah.
No, I was the raid leader, so I got to choose who went. But
the one mage allowed to go.
that was honestly, that's one of my favorite fights ever in World of Warcraft. That was a really, really fun fight.
That's awesome. Another change that we're talking about making is along the lines of that PvP balance and faction balance is, you know, obviously with Burning Crusade, Paladins are introduced to the Horde and Shamans are introduced to the Alliance. And that was intended to be a balancing of the factions and let's, you know, make them even. And then they wanted to kind of keep a little bit of flavor of that faction identity. So they kept Seal of Blood on the Horde and Seal of Vengeance on the Alliance. It was intended to be equivalent power abilities that were just slightly different in flavor, but in retrospect, Seal of Blood was just so much better. And so one of the changes that we are going to make is we are going to give the opposite faction's seal to the other faction, but we're going to do that at max level. So we keep just a little bit of that faction identity, where Horde will get Seal of Blood at level 64 on schedule, and then get Seal of Vengeance at level 70. And similarly, Alliance will get Seal of Vengeance at level 64, and then their equivalent, Seal of the Martyr, at level 70. Another thing we want to talk about is arena teams. When it first came out in Burning Crusade, the arena team system only let you have the same number of players on your team that was the size of the bracket it was for. So, for example, a 3v3 team could only have 3 players on the team. So if someone was like sick or unavailable one night, you couldn't play. And that felt really frustrating. So we're definitely going to go with like the last version of that, where you could have twice the size of the bracket on your team roster, so that you had alternates you could swap in and out. And then that way, as long as anybody had participated in, I think, 30% of the matches, then they got the full credit for the week of participation.
Yeah. Is that when we did personal ratings versus team ratings?
I think that came later, and we're also considering whether or not we want to do something with that as well. Because another thing that was problematic about arenas was the way that the ELO system was so inflationary. And so we're talking about whether or not we want to move forward with converting that to something more like the modern MMR system, so that it isn't as punishing to people in terms of like waiting hours for a match at the highest levels and things like that.
And another change, we're going to give players access to Blood Elf and Draenei early, so that before we actually open the Dark Portals, you'll have a chance to level those up. That's definitely not something we did originally.
I remember I had a friend who was really frustrated that the rest of us were all running around in Outland, and he was like, I'm still back in Outlands. What is going on? When can I play with you guys? So yeah, I'm really glad we're doing that.
Doing that with pre-patch?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah, pre-patch will come out and you'll be able to go start your Blood Elves and Draenei.
And then content. So we've got some phases happening.
Yeah. So the content phases that we got coming are exciting. We're going to start with Karazhan and Gruul's Lair and Magtheridon's Lair. And we want to start with just that released because we found with Classic that people really enjoy that kind of gear progression. And that's where all the tier 4 gear is with those raids. And we want people to have an opportunity to level up, catch up to their friends, and all kind of go through these things together. So as we unlock each chapter, we want to make sure everybody's had enough time to be part of that chapter. And the next chapter after that will be phase 2, which will be Serpent Shrine Cavern and Tempest Keep. then next we move on to phase 3, which is Hyjal and the Black Temple. And the reason that's a change is, of course, originally Hyjal was available from the launch of Burning Crusade, but nobody could really get in there because of the way the attunements work. So we'll unlock that as a later chapter alongside Black Temple. And then that'll go with Arena Season 2 at that point. And then Arena Season 3 will come out alongside Zulaman with a little bit of catch-up gear for anybody who's taken that long to catch up. It's another smaller instance, a 10-man. And then finally, Phase 5 will be Sunwell and Arena Season 4.
It's been a very busy year.
Yeah, it is. It's an expansion with a lot in it.
Yes.
A lot in it.
And so we spent a lot of time talking about Burning Crusade Classic and Burning Crusade, which is exciting. We're very excited about it, but there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot coming, and we want to walk through how this is going to materialize.
Well, yeah, really the question is, we have a diverse player base where people have a lot of different wants and needs. And how do we get there? How do we get to the Burning Crusade? Well, the first group of people that we wanted to make sure that we were serving well is those people who do want to go to the Burning Crusade. We feel that most of the community is interested in this. They're going to want to do this. We want to make it simple and easy for them. So how are we going to do that?
As we said earlier, you're going to be able to make a choice. So we'll talk about and explore these choices in some detail, and I'll give you some examples. So to start with the current servers you're on now, Classic Live servers, are going to become what we're calling progression servers. And what that means is the servers that are live now will always unlock any expansion we release. So when we get to our patch day, you're going to be presented with a choice. Do you want to continue on into the Burning Crusade, or do you want to move to Classic? So in that space, you're going to do that for every single character. So for my example, I'm on Worm Rest Accord. So I've got a level 60. I am definitely taking that on through to Burning Crusade. But I've got a couple of mid-levels that I know I want to move with my friends. Those are characters I level with my friends in Classic, and I want to continue that journey with them. We want to make it as easy and seamless as possible to just get right into Burning Crusade. But there are options.
That's awesome. I'm excited to hear that. I know there's a lot of my friends, for example, who maybe didn't really play Classic when it first came out, right? And so now they're behind. And they're interested in playing the Burning Crusade. This was, for a lot of people, their favorite expansion that we've done. We want to make sure that those people are served too. And one of the ways we could do that is provide a boost to people who are interested in coming back, that maybe aren't interested in doing the classic WoW experience, but really want to hop right into Outland as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so the team, we spent quite a bit of time discussing it because we want to make sure we respect the time of the people that have been playing Classic for 2 years, but also we want people to be able to enjoy Burning Crusade if they loved it the first time and maybe miss Classic. So we are going to offer a level 58 boost for purchase, but it does come with some restrictions. So it's going to be 1 per account. It's not going to be usable on Blood Elf or Draenei. It'll have some dungeon blues. It'll have level 40 mount skill, no professions. It's the basics, basically your Outland starting kit.
That's cool. That's a really great way to jump into the game for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
I'll be looking forward to that. Look, I know a lot of people came back to play WoW Classic, and that's all they want. That's all they ever wanted. They're like, you know what, Burning Crusade, that's awesome. I'm sure some people are going to love that, but for me, I came back for WoW Classic. What do they get to do? What's their options?
Yeah, that was really important for us too. Yeah. So we had all sat down and discussed like how we should frame this. So when we get to our patch day, which is prior to the Dark Portal opening, when I said before, like, I'll go back to my example for Worm Rest, we will be launching Classic Era Realms at the same time as we do our patch, and you will have that choice. So when you make the choice to go to Burning Crusade Classic, or you make the choice, like on my example, my level 40 Druid, I want to move that character to Classic Era. And what Classic Era means is that those particular servers are going to stay in that era forever. So that is going to remain Classic till the end of time. It's never going to unlock expansions. You'll be able to make that choice for every single character. Do you go on to Burning Crusade, or do you choose to go to Classic Era? Let's say, you know, you're behind the times a little bit. You'll still be able to have that choice. We haven't locked it to a time window. You're not going to miss the boat to Era.
The choice sounds awesome. And choice in WoW is something that's meaningful. It's always been meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that's important when we look at the community, that you're going to choose to go to the Burning Crusade or you're going to choose to go to Classic. You know, some people may not be comfortable with that choice. And while we think that that choice is important, we also recognize that there are folks that are going to want to play both, right? Like, yeah, see, right here. You have some stuff left to do in Classic that you wanted, and you want to keep that character in Classic, but you also are interested that same character wants to raid with your friends.
That's exactly
TPC. So what does that look like? How do we make that happen?
So we're going to actually offer a paid service to let you make a copy of your character. And I know, like, a copy is a big deal. So like you said, like, this is something we don't want to make just an automatic choice for everybody. But I know that for me, it really is going to be like that pull to go to both places. So I want to be able to say, like, you know what, I'm willing to pay some money for this. I want a copy of my character that lives in Classic Era forever, while I also go to Burning Crusade with that with that character. And that way I can stay with my friends who are really excited to go to Karazhan. I'm really excited to go to Karazhan. I want to see my hunter go through Karazhan, but if I'm missing like a couple pieces of my tier 3 set from Naxxramas, I still have an opportunity to go find a new guild there and go through Naxxramas again until I finish that set.
We're going to be spending a lot of time communicating these details. So even as much detail as we're giving now, it's very high level. There's going to be a lot more detail to come, so keep an ear out. But with that said, so Pat, when's all this happening?
Oh. Soon.
Yay!
So yeah, this is something that, you know, is important to get. People are still playing through Naxxramas. We want to make sure that they have enough time to do that. But what we are looking at, this will be happening in 2021. For sure, we are committed to doing that. And what we're looking at is starting the beta rather soon. So hopefully that beta will go up and we'll get that running. The community can come and participate, help us out. We'll start to hear some feedback on the things we've talked about today. If there's any adjustments we need to make, we want to make sure we have a long enough beta period for that to happen. And then we'll get that out to the players so you can all enter the Dark Portal.
Yay!
Yeah, it's exciting.
So any final words?
Yeah, I just talked about the beta, and you know, I will say just to the community, you all have been so instrumental in making Classic the success that it has been, and you will be equally instrumental in making the Burning Crusade a tremendous success also. So please get in that beta, play, give us your feedback. We want to hear all about it. So enjoy, welcome, and let's have some fun.
Yay!
Yeah, and it's been the highlight of my professional career to work on WoW Classic and have the support and love of this community. It is really special to me, and I'm really excited to be sharing this with all of you in the Burning Crusade.
Yeah, and for me, I've been playing Classic since it launched, and I wasn't working at Blizzard then, and it's changed my life, obviously. So from me and the entire WoW team, we want to thank you for bringing Azeroth to life for us. So we will definitely be seeing you in game in whatever flavor you choose. And until then, stay classic.
Dolby is a proud partner of BlizzCon Online. Watch Shock vs. the World in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, only in the Dolby Access app. Coca-Cola, the official refresh.
Guide and protect me.
Strong ability to assess what's happening all around you.
My personal favorite is the combo point specialization. As you might expect, this ability lets you build multiple combo points, which enhance your spender's effectiveness in combat. It basically, you just like get into this rhythm of combat of like 3 builders to a spender, lets you build up to these big moments. It almost makes like a rhythm game out of combat, which I really enjoy. And the way the class specializations work is you will work with one of the world groups of rogues around the world in Sanctuary that you will find and do class-specific quests that no other class can do. Whether it's the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye, the remnants of that order that you choose to work with, or the mercenaries of Kyrgyzstan, or the outlaw smugglers of the swamps of Hawazar, depending maybe on what speaks to your class fantasy, or depending on which specialization speaks to you or you find more powerful, you'll be able to complete that quest line and then activate that specialization, which then you can mix and match with any of the playstyles. So you could be a combo points, ranged, or melee player, but you could also be an exploit weakness range or melee or hybrid player. It just gives the class such huge variety in builds and playstyles.
I love how that ties into the open world aspect. You know, the ability to go to Kyrgyzstan or Hawazar and get these special quests that only the rogue can get. That touches on one of the things that I love that we've done, which is like connecting the weapons and equipment to regions. When you're exploring the world and you pick up a sword in Kyrgyzstan, it's a scimitar, right? If you're up in Skazglan, which is up in the north, it's more of like a broadsword. You know, it's this sort of like this, it's a subtle thing, but I think it really, you know, different armors that you get in different regions look like they're from the place. And so giving that sense of place in the world is something that I every time I play the game, I feel it, I see it in just like subtle ways, and just really enhances the overall sense of immersion and experience. And I just want to see what's around the corner.
The weapons are also like, going back all the way to Diablo 2, just such an integral part of the class, and the ability to augment your weapon through magic, through enhancements, is just something that really spoke to us when we try to tap into the core of the class. Going back to those mercenaries that you could hire, it was always kind of cool to see what kind of special arrow shot they would come with. And it's something we paid homage to with the imbue system. All the way from directly elemental imbues like the frost imbue, which feels a lot like the ice arrows that the D2 mercenaries used to shoot, all the way to we expanded it to feel a little grittier, a little darker, into things like poison imbue and shadow imbue. Just the ability to take any sort of attack and kind of mix and match with those imbues.
Once that kind of clicked for me that I could take any ability and imbue it with you know, either of those elements. Rain of Arrows with frost and Rain of Arrows with acid is completely different, right? Like you're essentially freezing the battlefield, and then I just love poison imbue because of the gruesome deaths that all the monsters experience. And we've had a ton of fun making that art, so it's always fun to kind of see the, you know, just a field of goatmen melt into nothing. You know, you just kill everything on the screen in a gory mess, which I never really gets old.
It's a really flexible way to take a build that you're already comfortable with, that you already like. Say you're really comfortable with flurry and shadow step as kind of your melee skills, and you find yourself needing more crowd control. Without changing your playstyle, you can just add the frost imbue to your bar. And now you're able to use those same abilities to slow down enemies or build up to a full freeze.
Yeah, and Frost imbue plays pretty well with group play as well, right? You know, where I can freeze an enemy and somebody else can blow it up.
Or also the way that like chills work in the game, they build up to a full freeze. So if your best buddy is a sorceress player, your chill spells and your frost imbue chills will actually build up faster than if you were using a single player. So, you know, just ask to open with Blizzard before you frost imbue, and you'll basically be freezing enemies twice as fast, which is super awesome synergy. So the last thing that's worth spending some time talking about the rogue is like how mobile the class is, just how able the class is to kind of close the gap between themselves and the enemy. Even while they're mounted, you might find yourself, you know, a full screen away and just dismounting into a rain of arrows, closing the rest of that gap with maybe like a dash, and then getting back out of there, dropping some caltrops. They can basically control the fluid motion of combat in a way that no other class can. That's something that beyond all of the other customization options that you have, whether it's the playstyle, whether it's the range at which you engage with enemies, whether it's the cosmetics, just the sheer mobility of the class lets you just adapt to the situations. Even when you would have totally been toast as another class, a room full of elites, you're able to use offensive abilities in creative ways. Abilities like Shadow Step, right? Like abilities like Shadow Realm, abilities like Dash. So you're able to kind of like use them to your advantage in a way that gets you out of a very dangerous situation by picking that one lone skeleton archer that maybe is not surrounded by everything else. You can Shadow Step there, get out of the way, and, you know, live to fight another day, which just feels like such a rogue thing to do.
When I play the rogue, I really do feel like surgical precision. You know, I really feel like I can move through the whole screen without. It feels kind of effortless, and almost sometimes a little unfair. It's like when I go into Shadow Realm and I'm dashing, I'm like, am I cheating? Did I just break the game?
And we'll hear more about PvP in a little bit, but I just couldn't go without mentioning that some of our most feared PvP players on the team play rogue, and just the way they're able to like surprise you. You might be with a group of friends, and just that mobility lets them go to the middle of the group, unleash a rain of arrows that's frost imbued, and before you know it, you're all frozen. And looking at a rogue while you're frozen, let me tell you, there are fewer scarier things in our game right now than that.
So Luis, this was, this was like the ultimate blog post. This has been a lot of fun getting to share a new addition to the campfire. And of course, there's probably going to be more in the future, right? We always say there's a little bit more room around that campfire.
That's right. And that pretty much wraps it up for the Rogue. So why don't we go to Joe and Karina and learn a little bit more about those open world features that we promised.
Well, thank you to Luis and John for introducing the Rogue, which I'm really excited that we finally got a chance to talk about and announce to the community. And we're here today to talk to you about Diablo 4 and the open world. Now, I think maybe the best way to start this conversation, Karina, would be just for me to ask you, like, what are you most excited about what we're adding in Diablo 4 for the open world? What feature, what mechanic, what are you most excited to talk about first?
I am really excited about just exploring the world. I am a huge completist naturally, that's the way I play, and I love exploring and looking around at every single nook and cranny. The more this game has been growing, particularly since last BlizzCon, the more fun I am having just riding around the open world on my mount and exploring everything I possibly can.
Yeah, it's really fun, I think, now that we've kind of taken Sanctuary and just made it so much larger when you're playing through the game. You know, when you compare it to like Diablo 3 or Diablo 2, there's tons of like exploration and movement throughout the world in those games, obviously, but now that we've really been able to embrace the open world concept, we can really dive much deeper into like how does Sanctuary actually all fit together, like being able to ride from Skazglen to the Fractured Peaks, like it's very, very interesting that way. One of the things about that I think is really neat is the collection aspect of mounts. So I mean, there's all these horse breeds and other mounts you can find throughout the world, from completing puzzles or just finding hidden locations or slaying certain particular kinds of monsters. Find various horses or things to customize your horse with, like horse armor. There are hoof plates you can get and trophies to show off your accomplishments. There's lots of different ways to make sure that you can personalize your mount, make it really feel like it's your companion.
Yeah, and it's really cool that like you mentioned with the horseshoes, you get to actually change the speed at which your horse can run. And it's something I like, to be able to customize the horse to the type of gameplay that I like to enjoy as a player. And it's really, really fun. I like the amount of variety that you give us.
And I mean, there's more to mounts than just that as well. So like one thing we know we didn't want to do with mounts in Diablo 4 is we didn't want to have like jousting, this idea of like fighting from horseback. It's not really the Diablo experience, right?
Yeah, that's something I'm super excited for. Like we showed last BlizzCon, we had the sorceress, we showed her dismount skill, Ice Dash, where she shoots forwards off her mount and destroys everything in her path. But with the rogue, we got to have a little bit more fun with it. And the animation department has done a fantastic job of having her leap up into the air and fire down like the rain of arrows that destroys everything. It's really, really cool. It feels really good.
The idea of like leaping from your saddle and just raining arrows down on your enemies as you pass by, getting down the fray and then starting to like stab people and poison people, like that is spot on what we're looking for. Being able to jump in, engage with enemies from your horse, and then just fight it out, duke it out using your skills and everything else like we want.
It's interesting that your mount can't get damaged, but if a monster actually attacks you while you're mounted, you will actually be forced to dismount. So there is a flip side of actually judging for yourself when you do want to use that skill in order to prevent you from being forced off unintentionally.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of gameplay there to make sure that you're using it in a way that is most appropriate to help you get where you're trying to go and also fight the monsters you want to fight. One of the things I'm most excited about for the open world right now is this feature we have called camps. So camps are basically these strongholds of evil out in the overworld. You know, you got to remember that, you know, decades ago, during the events of Reaper of Souls, you know, when Malthael rose to power, the Reapers killed like 9 out of 10 people throughout Sanctuary. Like a tremendous number of people passed away. Now there's a big power vacuum out here, you know, decades later. And these monsters have started to move into these places. Bandits, monsters, goatmen, all kinds of different creatures, skeletons, the undead, have started to like resurface and come back into these areas and start to take them for themselves. You, as the hero of Sanctuary, get to kind of wander through these spaces and begin to reclaim them for the people of Sanctuary. That's part of what makes them really, really neat. Each of them have their own story, they're their own unique fixed place in the world.
Unlike quests are something that happens randomly in the world and then you can come across them anyway. Camps are a permanent fixture that you as the player, when you come across that evil, you can actually have a real impact on the open world that everyone else can see, because once you have defeated that evil, one of the really fun things is that you basically unlock that camp and you make a new waypoint that previously didn't exist for yourself, but like suddenly all the marketplaces open up and now you have a blacksmith vendor in a location that previously didn't exist, which I think is really, really cool.
Now, what we're looking at here, this was a village, the village of Karayisu, which now has fallen to ruins. You know, the people here in the Dry Steppes had a problem. The problem was there were bloodthirsty cannibals that dwelled nearby and would regularly raid their community. And the people had to come up with a solution. They weren't strong enough to defend themselves from these cannibals, so they made a dark bargain with a demon. And they were able to gather enough power to push these cannibals out and protect their community, but not without great cost, as we can see here. You're kind of helping resettle parts of Sanctuary in many ways when you take these camps back from the enemy. Vendors will come back, and now suddenly there might be like new quest givers, new stories that need to be told. Dungeon entrances can appear in some of these places afterwards. Like there's all kinds of things that occur after you take over the camp and liberate it from these forces of darkness. And again, it's just so cool to see you permanently change the world as you find these places and kind of wander through and solve these problems. One of the other neat things about camps, and in general, like the overworld, just broadly speaking, is we have so many more opportunities now to kind of play with movement.
It pushes the bar vertically as well as horizontally, and we now have been playing around with the idea of jumping across chasms to allow the player to get access to a location that they previously didn't have.
There's all kinds of areas where players will like find their own path, allowing them extra movement options they haven't had in previous Diablo games.
We are also in a vertical top-down camera for the environment, and so it really breaks up the plane that you typically see as, like, not only as a developer, as an animator, but also as a player. There's such a huge variety of things that you can possibly do to mix it up and make things a little bit different. There's like certain puzzle elements to it. That it's not so straightforward and not always obvious. So it's not just a matter of running through the world and getting, to your goal. It's you have to think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Karina, I know that you're very excited about PvP.
I'm a huge fan of PvP. I love the first time that we all actually had a chance to, as a whole team, play PvP, because the amount of feedback that generated, I think it took design like 3 days to go through it all. And what that showed me is that I find everyone they either love it or they hate it. And I personally love it. I really enjoy it. So the way that PvP works is that the hatred of Mephisto has been bubbling up from hell and has created these areas in the open world that you can freely walk into that kind of consumes you and makes you turn against your fellow players.
PvP, even in these areas, these fields of hatred, right? Even in these spaces, it's not like mandatory. So these are optional places players can choose to go to kind of collect shards of hatred that they can collect from like killing monsters, from completing events, opening chests, all kinds of ways to earn these things, not necessarily just killing players. And as you earn these shards of hatred, they're kind of in an unpurified state. They're in a basic state. You need to bring them to a purification event in order to turn them into a currency that you can then use in the nearby like small encampments around the fields of hatred. And what's really neat about that is that when you're trying to purify these things, that's when everybody nearby finds out and hears like, oh, okay, well, someone's actually trying to complete a purification ritual. We need to go and kill those players and take all of their shards before they finish. But once you purify them, they're yours. You can't lose them. But before they're purified, they're free game.
Yeah, I think it's really important to note that, like, even if you don't want to engage with other PvP players, you can actually explore those areas and collect the shards of hatreds from specifically monsters, but the second you need to then turn them in and purify them into a currency where you can spend them on gear, trophies, and other content, you actually are hostile yourself and actually can be attacked during that single moment. But I think that really creates a lot of opportunity for you to team up with friends for just that one little moment in order to gain the reward that you spent so much time collecting.
So you called out earlier that the shards of hatred are used for like some of the vendors you could find in the fields of hatred. There are some special vendors that only kind of arrive in these areas. They'll have special costumes or new mounts and weapons and things along those lines. Nothing that's like strictly more powerful than stuff you can get in other parts of the game, but stuff that really like speaks to your desire as a PvP player. And I think one of the things that's really kind of neat about the system in general is that as a player, if you choose to go hostile, betray other players that are near you, try to get as many shards of hatred as you can, you're going to slowly begin to kind of like infuse yourself with that same curse of Mephisto. And you're going to become a vessel of hatred. Now, once you do that, everyone within a very large radius of you is going to be able to see you as a threat on the map. And they're going to get a bonus for killing you. So when that occurs, you have a set amount of time you need to survive. And if you're able to do that without running away or jumping in a town portal and trying to escape, if you're able to do that and finish that period and manage to escape or defeat your people who are coming to try to destroy you, you're going to get a really big bonus at the end. And that's been really, really exciting to watch in our playtests already, as people are like kind of wrestling for this status and then trying to defend it once they actually achieve it.
Yeah, and there's also the ears that you get to collect as a trophy. It harkens back to D2, where I think you could sell the ears for 1 gold. I don't know if we're going to be doing that. I know we were playing around with them as a currency at one point, but I think right now it's just a cool trophy that you get to collect and show off.
Yeah, right now, very, very cool trophy. The thing was really neat about the Diablo 2 ears, like you could fill up your whole inventory with them, obviously, but being able to see like the people that you took the ears from, like seeing their character names on there, was always like the interesting, fun part. Kind of like proof, like yeah, I got that person that time, right? So we want to make sure that we embrace that aspect of it. That's the important part for us. I think that's going to be a really, really great callback to Diablo 2 PvP.
Right, yeah. So I love where PvP is going, and I love that it is such it's only one part of how large and open the world is, and really harkens back to the adventure in me when I play the game. How do you feel?
I'm super excited as well. I mean, there's so much to look forward to in Diablo 4 right now. Like what we talked about today just scratches the surface. In general, as a Diablo fan, there's a lot to be looking forward to in the franchise in the future. Thank you so much for watching today. We look forward to speaking to you more about this game and others in the future.
Welcome everybody to BlizzCon. We know that you all want to hear more about Overwatch 2. Allow us to invite you behind the scenes to explain more of what we're doing and why.
Everybody, please hit record. Fingers crossed. We lost Scott.
It's off to a good start.
This is going great.
We've been assembling one of the best teams that I have ever worked with.
I'm nervous.
And I'm so proud of the progress that we have made together.
We really liked the stylized drop down.
Imagine that it's coming forward, boom, boom, this starts to spin.
The scale and the scope of this game have meant that we've needed to grow substantially.
We have to...
Sorry. Let me start.
Overall, I think we've done incredibly well as a team moving to work from home.
Oh, shadow play. There have definitely been challenges.
Okay, that's it for me tonight. Just wanted to get to the first place out of the starting zone and then kind of build up some rested experience for next time. All right, well, 4th character. We'll see what happens.